smiling at the camera, with a butterfly painted on her face. Pregnant Crystal Holcomb stands outside a Texas church alongside two little girls. This haunting final picture was taken on Halloween, just days before a gunman opened fire at the church in Sutherland Springs, killing at least 26. Crystal, who was 8 months pregnant, reportedly died in the massacre, along with 3 of her 5 kids and her in-laws, Carla and Brian Holcomb. A devoted mom who didn't even drink or smoke, she took care of her children, raised goats and made homemade cheese, a relative said. In the poignant image, Crystal, married to husband John, can be seen standing beside the 2 beaming girls, believed to be her daughters. For live updates, click here. Crystal Holcomb poses outside the Texas church on Halloween, just days before the massacre. Image Facebook. 3 of her 5 children are also said to have been killed in the attack. Image AMERICANSTATESMAN. They were attending the First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs' annual Fall Festival, alongside other excited families and churchgoers. The free event featured food, drinks, a bouncy house, games, a maze and a hayride among other things, with attendees invited to bring their kids. It took place just days before suspect Evan Patrick Kelly started shooting at innocent victims, including terrified children, at the church. Crystal's devastated cousin, Nick Ulig, said the mum-to-be was killed by Kelly in yesterday's shooting, along with 3 of her kids. The other 2 youngsters are said to be in a critical condition. It is unclear whether Crystal's unborn baby died in the attack. She doesn't even drink, smoke or nothing, Mr. Ulig said of his cousin, according to the San Antonio Express News. Kelly has been named as the gunman behind the shooting. Crystal took care of her children, raised goats and made homemade cheese, a relative said. Image Facebook. He added that John's parents were also killed in the attack. Family member Bobby Lynn Holland had taken to Facebook last night to express her concerns about the family's welfare. She had written, "If anyone hears from Crystal Holcomb and or John Holcomb, please let me know if they are okay. Need to know that my nieces and nephews, sister, and brother-in-law are okay. Please keep them and their friends and family in your prayers." A family friend later posted the tragic message, "Keep the Holcomb family in your prayers." In a Facebook post on Saturday, Crystal herself had spoken of her pride at her daughters finishing first and third in a 4-H bake-off. Brave local Stephen Wilford, pictured, is said to have confronted and shot Kelly as he left the church. Image Facebook. Mr. Wilford then called on courageous bystander, Johnny Langendorf, pictured, to help him chase down the suspect. Image Facebook. She had written, "The girls participated in their first 4-H food challenge today. They've worked hard and learned so much. I'm very proud of them both. Emily got third in her category, and Megan placed first in hers." Moving on to district, Emily's food challenge team did a great job. It was a new experience for all of them, but they did so well earlier. It was reported how 2 heroic locals pursued Kelly in a 95 mph car chase, before running him off the road, after the deadly attack. Brave resident Stephen Wilford is said to have confronted and shot the suspect as he left the church following the massacre. Despite having no military experience, he reportedly opened fire on the 26-year-old with a rifle, hitting him in between his body armor. As the alleged killer then dropped his own gun and fled in an SUV, Mr. Wilford, 55, called on bystander, Johnny Langendorf, to help him. Mr. Langendorf has described how he and Mr. Wilford pursued the mass killer. Image ABC. The pair jumped in Mr. Langendorf's truck and chased after Kelly, who had a head start, hitting speeds of 95 mph as they weaved around traffic. Eventually, they managed to run him off the road, it is claimed. As Kelly, who has been named as the shooter by U.S. media, lost control of the SUV and came to a halt, Mr. Langendorf stopped his own truck. Mr. Wilford then leapt out, with his rifle drawn. He kept the weapon trained on Kelly until police arrived at the scene minutes later. The suspect was reportedly found dead in his car. Speaking to DailyMail.com, Mr. Langendorf's girlfriend, Summer Cattle, described how Kelly passed away close to her boyfriend. It is thought he may have died as a result of his gunshot wound. Law enforcement officials investigate the shooting. Image AMERICANSTATESMAN. Mr. Wilford, a plumber, had gone to confront the alleged gunman after his daughter alerted him to the massacre, a local told the news site. An official said he had grabbed his rifle and engaged the suspect. Recalling his own heroic role in the incident, Mr. Langendorf told KSAT 12, "I pulled up to the intersection where the shooting happened and I saw 2 men exchanging gunfire, the other being a citizen of the community. The shooter of the church had taken off, fled in his vehicle, and the other gentleman came and he said, 'We need to pursue him, he just shot at the church.' And so that's what I did, I just acted and got him off-road." He described how Mr. Wilford, a stranger to him, had come to his vehicle in distress and explained very quickly what had happened. He got in the truck and I knew that it was time to go, he said. The pastor's daughter, Annabelle, was killed in the attack. Pastor Frank Pomeroy lost his daughter Image. First Baptist Church of Sutherland Springs, Texas. YouTube. He continued, Kelly got a little bit of a jump on us. So we were doing about 95 down 539 going around traffic and everything. Eventually he came to kind of a slowdown and after that we got within just a few feet of him and then he got off the road. He just lost control and that's whenever I put the vehicle in park because I was still on the phone with dispatch. Mr. Langendorf said. Mr. Wilford jumped out with his rifle drawn. Kelly didn't move after that, said the courageous bystander. He added that neither he nor Mr. Wilford got close enough to the suspect in the SUV to see whether he was moving or injured. Police reportedly arrived at the scene in Guadalupe minutes later. At least 26 worshippers were killed and at least 20 others were injured when Kelly reportedly opened fire at the White Steeple Church yesterday. Pastor Frank Pomeroy and his wife, Sherry Image. Facebook. The couple were both out of town in 2 different states when they heard the tragic news. Image. Facebook. It was the latest in a series of mass shootings that have plagued the U.S. The lone suspect, wearing black tactical gear and a ballistic vest and carrying an assault rifle, started shooting after entering the church. The victims ranged in age from 5 to 72 years old, law enforcement officials said at a news conference. However, the death toll may rise. The first confirmed victim was Annabelle Pomeroy, the 14-year-old daughter of First Baptist Church pastor Frank Pomeroy. Mr. Pomeroy and his wife were both out of town in 2 different states when they heard the tragic news. Mom Sherry Pomeroy told CBS News via text message, "My husband and I were ironically out of town in 2 different states. We lost our 14-year-old daughter today and many friends." Locals comfort each other at a community center after the mass shooting. Image. AMERICANSTATESMA and Texas Governor Greg Abbott comforts a local resident during a candlelight vigil. Image. AFP. Neither of us have made it back into town yet to personally see the devastation. I am at the Charlotte airport trying to get home as soon as I can. Other tearful relatives of churchgoers gathered outside the building as they waited desperately to hear about their loved ones. Police have yet to officially confirm the names of any victims. However, Amanda Mosel confirmed her 13-year-old goddaughter was among those who lost their lives. The 34-year-old stood outside the Sutherland Springs community building where citizens gathered following the shooting. She told the San Antonio Express News, "From what I've heard, someone just walked in and started shooting." Ms. Mosel said she sadly wasn't at the service yesterday morning, but the church is one she has attended. Mourners attend a candlelit vigil. Image. Reuters. The Boston Globe tweeted that yesterday's mass shooting was the 307th incident with 4 or more victims out of 309 days in the U.S. Image. Reuters. Local residents embraced during the vigil. Image. Reuters. The church has been described as a small, tight-knit community. Image. Reuters. There's maybe 50 of us, she added. It's a small, tight-knit church. Joanne Ward and her 6-year-old daughter Brooke are missing, feared dead following the shooting. Her 8-year-old daughter, Emily, was reportedly taken into surgery after being shot in the attack. Meanwhile, her 9-year-old daughter Rihanna escaped injury by hiding, Cat2 reported. Ms. Ward's stepson, 5-year-old Rylan Ward, is also believed to have been shot and has had surgery to remove 5 bullets, according to CBS. Local news channel KENS 5 Eyewitness News claims that a 2-year-old was among the shooting victims, although this has yet to be confirmed. The nearby University Hospital said they had received 4 children but did not specify whether were deceased or injured. Kelly was later found dead in the SUV, which had multiple weapons inside, it is reported. It has not been confirmed whether the fatal wound was self-inflicted or as a result of the clash with Mr. Wilford. The scene at First Baptist this afternoon. Image. ABC. FBI ask people to move away from the scene. Image. Reuters. An area around the church has been cordoned off as officers investigate. Image. ABC. Kelly has been identified as a former member of the U.S. Air Force with a military background. He was discharged from the Air Force several years ago for allegedly assaulting his spouse and a child. He is believed to have been a married father of a toddler son. Police are now trying to piece together why the suspect targeted the small-town church. Wilson County Sheriff Joe Tackett told CNN, "We don't think he had any connection to this church. We have no motive." Witnesses reported seeing a man walk into the church at around 11:20 a.m. local time, half an hour into a Sunday morning service before hearing gunfire ring out. The church is thought to have a congregation of around 50, which would suggest more than half were slaughtered by the gunman. Sutherland. Spring is a very small community. Image Google. A helicopter flies away from the church. Image Reuters. Victims were taken to a nearby hospital, just 15 miles away from the church, with many being airlifted by helicopters. Another church, just down the street, got word that their neighbors had been attacked while they were mid-service. Phones and pagers began ringing as it became clear that there had been a shooting, one CBS reporter said. As the pastor and other members of the congregation ran to assist their fellow place of worship, they were met with a scene of carnage, with reports suggesting numerous children had been involved in the atrocity. Victims are wheeled out of the church. Image CNN. KSAT. Another church down the street heard their neighbors were attacked and were met with a scene of carnage. Image Reuters. Emergency services at the scene. Image Reuters. Earlier, Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, said Texas County Commissioner tells NBC News there are a lot of fatalities at church shooting, estimating 24 dead. The shooter is deceased. U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted about the atrocity and confirmed he was monitoring the situation from overseas. He wrote, "May God be with the people of Sutherland Springs, Texas. The FBI law enforcement are on the scene. I am monitoring the situation from Japan." A U.S. reporter in San Antonio wrote on Twitter at least 6 helicopters called to transport victims. Neighbors say they heard shooter may have reloaded multiple times, around 50 people usually at service. He added, "Police tell me shooter is dead and there is no more active threat. Area of the church is now blocked off and taped off. Family and friends still waiting to hear if their loved ones are safe." The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, FBI agents and U.S. Marshals were all dispatched to the scene. Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, said earlier, "Our prayers are with all who were harmed by this evil act. Our thanks to law enforcement for their response." More details from the DPS soon. The church has now been taped off. Image Reuters. Victims were airlifted 15 miles to a nearby hospital. Image Reuters. There is still no word on the identity of the victims or the shooter. Image Reuters. In a longer statement, he said, "While the details of this horrific act are still under investigation, Cecilia and I want to send our sincerest thoughts and prayers to all those who have been affected by this evil act. I want to thank law enforcement for their response and ask that all Texans pray for the Sutherland Springs community during this time of mourning and loss." Energy Secretary Rick Perry wrote, "Anita and I send our prayers to the victims of the shooting in Texas." Sutherland Springs is a small community located in Wilson County, Texas on U.S. Highway 87, with a population of just 362, according to the Handbook of Texas, published in 2000. It has a post office, 2 petrol stations and a Dollar General store. One man wrote on Facebook, "Unbelievable that people can't go to church now without having to worry about an attack while praying." Another added, "A very sad day. Relatives sob as they wait to hear news of loved ones." Image at Max Massey. David Whitworth. A woman in her car waits for news on her family. Image at Max Massey. David Whitworth sought prayers to all involved that your Lord would comfort and strengthen this community in this terrible tragedy. Hunter Wallace said on Twitter, "What kind of country are we living in? When sick people are shooting people worshiping at church." It has happened again in Sutherland Springs. The Boston Globe tweeted that yesterday's mass shooting was the 307th incident with 4 or more victims out of 309 days in the U.S.